So rapper Gunna found himself in a very impossible position last month and, going on throughout this case. And I want to talk about it a little bit. Before I do, let me introduce myself. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm. Here's the business card. Just happened to have it on the table. I got out of court today earlier. Boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And we're talking about Gunna and the impossible situation that he has found himself in. Listen, there's a lot of people talking about Gunna and him being in court. The video got leaked of him entering his guilty plea in it, and it prompted a lot of conversation about, is Gunna a snitch?
He did what he did, man. Everybody who's been in the streets know you did not, but you don't do no out there.
I don't really want to get into that drama. I just want to talk about the difficult position that Gunna found himself in. Listen, I was looking at Gunna's relationship to Young Thug, and it seems that it started around 2015. They did a song together, and eventually Gunna gets signed to YSL Records. YSL Records, the legitimate business. From this indictment, it didn't appear that Gunna was really involved in any of the actual gang activity, right? So you didn't see anything associated with Gunna as far as like an armed robbery or, an assault or an attempted murder or anything that you see under these other people. Gunna, it just, from what I see, it just seems like he's an artist. And so as someone who's just an artist on a record label, Gunna found himself in a really difficult position. We know that he ended up pleading guilty to a racketeering charge, but in any case where you're going to plead guilty, there's going to be what's called a factual basis for the plea, right? So you have to admit to certain facts in order for the judge to accept your plea. You can't just say, okay, I plead guilty, and the judge, signs off on it and that's it. No, they're going to ask you for a factual basis. And what ends up happening, let's just use a battery case, for example. You would have to say something to the effect of, hey, on or about January 17th, 2023, I unlawfully exercised force upon the person of another. I exercised force upon the person of another. That would be the factual basis for your guilty plea to battery. In this situation, before he actually ended up in court, the video that we all saw, there's gonna have been back and forth between the DA that's on this case and Gunna's attorneys. Right? So, this type of thing wouldn't just get popped up on you last minute. You generally are going to iron out what is going to be an acceptable factual basis for the plea for the DA. And it appears that they had him go above and beyond what normally would be admitted to in a change of plea hearing. Again, because it can really be just as bland a statement, like I said, in a battery case, I unlawfully used force upon another person. And realistically, that could be that you went and you slapped them, you punched them, you kicked them or what have you. And you can usually have these bland statements. But in this one, the DA had them put extras on the statement. He had to go and admit certain things. And the impossible position that I'm referring to from Gunna's perspective is when the DA and the defense are going back and forth in terms of what the terms of the agreement are going to be. If at any point that this negotiation fails, then the case, just proceeds to trial, right? So Gunna was in this and on the verge of going to trial until this deal got done. And as part of that deal, he was going to have to admit to these things in court. Otherwise, the DA could say, hey, you're going to admit to this, you're going to say this in court under oath, or the deal's off the table. You're not going to be able to, we're not going to offer this to you. And your alternative would be, okay, you're going to accept it or you're going to go to trial. And so when we think about Gunna and we think about him, perhaps, he's a street dude. Came up in Georgia, in Atlanta, I presume, but was not a gangster, just happened to be an artist and, caught the eye eventually of Young Thug and went on to be a very successful artist. I looked up, Gunna's worth $4 million, but found himself in a position where he ended up having to admit to certain things under oath or he wasn't going to be able to get out of custody. And so when you're approaching, eventually a year in custody, and the prospect of having to stay in custody throughout the trial, right? Because they went in front of the judge at least 3 times, and each time the judge said, I'm not going to let you out of custody. So he was going to have to stay in custody through this whole trial, which again, the DA is saying that we have 300 witnesses and this could last 6 to 9 months up to a year. That's a whole nother year being behind bars, not being able to make money, not being with your family, not being with the people that you love. So at what cost do you, for the purpose of staying down, being hood, being a real ninja, why would you do that? And again, this is the impossible position that Gunna found himself in, such that he would have to make these admissions. So the video that I saw said that, hey, he got affiliated with YSL in 2016, right? And we know, based on the indictment, that YSL, the gang, started in 2012. And it's my understanding there's no allegation that, Gunna was standing side by side with Young Thug as he was founding this gang. No, like, he didn't get into the picture until 2016. But what he ended up admitting in court is that YSL is a music label and a gang. A music label and a gang. And we're gonna hear hear testimony from Kevin Liles and Leor Cohen, who are co-founders of 300 Entertainment. I did some digging on 300 Entertainment, and by digging I just mean going to their Wikipedia page. And in 2021, 300 Entertainment was acquired by Warner Music Group for $400 million. $400 million. So this is a serious, legitimate business. And I almost find like I'm in the wrong business, right? I love Kersey law, man, but Kersey law's not doing 400 million. I was just messing. No, I love being a criminal defense attorney. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But 300 Entertainment is a serious business. Again, they got acquired for $400 million. And they're going to come in and say that, hey, we have a relationship with Young Thug. Our company, 300, is the distributor for YSL Records. And so why would this company that's worth at least $400 million, why would they just associate with some street gang, right? They wouldn't. But they have this legitimate business partnership with YSL Records and with Young Thug. And if you saw the bond hearing where Kevin Liles gave very passionate testimony about Young Thug, again, like he's seeing someone who he has a relationship with, both, it seems, kind of personal, but definitely business. And that's messing up the money. It's messing up a situation where you have the head of this label of YSL Records behind bars. He's not making music. Probably, things are just really on hold in this situation. Again, so I do think it's gonna be very impressive testimony that comes from Kevin Liles and Leor Cohen about YSL as the business. But, at the end of the day, the prosecutors, the DAs aren't saying that there's not a YSL the business. Right? We acknowledge there's a YSL the business, but there's also a YSL the gang, and YSL the gang does legitimate gang stuff, right? So if you looked at that indictment and saw that there's murder, attempted murder, armed robbery, assault, weapons possession, drug sales, these are all, this is legitimate gang activity. So yeah, we can acknowledge that there is a YSL Records, and it is a serious enough business such that a $400 million company would be associated with it. But that's the legitimate business. We're talking about the gang. And make no mistake about it, this isn't me, people watch some of these videos, and when I break down what the DA's position is, people are like, oh man, you sound like a prosecutor. You sound like the DA. Nah, I just sound like somebody who knows how to read an indictment. That's what their allegations are. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm just kind of breaking this stuff down for you guys. At the end of the day, what the DA is going to be arguing and what they've alleged in their indictment is this legitimate business is actually part of this conspiracy, because it serves as promotion for the gang, right? So when you have music videos and you have all the pretty girls and you have the amazing exotic cars and you have diamond encrusted YSL chains and all that kind of stuff, they're saying that, hey, because we have YSL the business and YSL the gang, what YSL the business is doing is part of promoting the gang. And that's where Gunna's racketeering comes from, because they're saying, hey, every time Gunna gets in the booth, every time Gunna's in a video, he's promoting YSL, and on some level, this YSL gang is benefiting from everything that he's doing. So he acknowledges again that YSL is a music label and a gang, and he has personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang. So again, when we look at that long list of all those offenses, that's part of what they're saying, the conspiracy and these overt acts in furtherance of this conspiracy to violate RICO. And so you need to know a little bit about Georgia's law on RICO, because again, this is not a federal case. A lot of people, you hear RICO and you think federal. There is obviously a federal RICO act, but there are a number of states that have their own RICO, and Georgia's one of them. The thing to concentrate on in terms of Georgia's RICO and how it applies to this case is basically getting money by way of racketeering activity, all right? Getting money by way of racketeering activity. And so then you have to look at, okay, well, what is racketeering activity? And that's gonna be, the crimes that fall under the RICO statute in Georgia. They include selling drugs, distributing drugs, homicide, bodily injury, burglary, theft, the very types of offenses that if you look at the indictment, those are the things that are listed under this activity. So this is the racketeering that the DEA is referring to. So when you see all those offenses, the attempted murders, the murders, assaults with a deadly weapon, the armed robbery, that's the way that they're getting money, right? So the gang is getting money by racketeering activity, which includes all these different offenses. YSL, the label, essentially promotes the gang. And that's what he was basically admitting to. And then they get into a specific instance in which Gunna is in the car with Young Thug, and they find drugs and they find a gun. And he ultimately admits during his plea that those didn't belong to him. He got two guys in a car, a gun and drugs. Somebody's gonna have to take responsibility for those. And if we go back to Gunna just being an artist, Gunna's not a gang member. There's a lot of people who were expecting him to sit up and be like, they could have been my drugs, it could have been my gun. Why should Gunna, a mere artist, have to put himself in a position where he's at risk of being blamed for being in possession of a firearm and drugs when he's just an artist? So again, that goes back to this really impossible position that he's put in as a street artist, when you blur the lines being a gangster rapper and being essentially in bed with people who are really doing gangster stuff. That's when sometimes this stuff can spill over onto you, and that's where he found himself in this difficult position. Do I admit that, no, this stuff wasn't mine, or do I just ride it out? Do I go and sit in jail for another year as we play out this trial, only for the end for me to be able to, perhaps take the stand and say, listen, I never did any of these things. I was just an artist. Yes, I'm gonna have to admit, even if it's on cross-examination, that YSL is a gang and does, real gang stuff, but I didn't have anything to do with it. I just don't understand what people were expecting him to do in this situation, besides, the obvious, which would be, stay in jail longer just to stay down for other people who clearly wouldn't do it for you. So again, as part of this plea, he had to accept this statement. I recognize, accept, and deeply regret that my talent in music indirectly furthered YSL the gang to the detriment of my community. The reality is there are people in this Fulton County who are really upset that this is going on, that legitimate crime, attempted murder, drug sales, all this stuff is going on, and then you have this label and one of the biggest artists in the country, if not in the world, promoting this stuff as they sit up and watch this stuff going down in their backyard. And they're upset about it. And they put this in there, you normally wouldn't see this type of language in a plea deal, but they said, hey, if you want to take advantage of this deal, if you want to get out of custody, you're gonna have to admit this. Again, he had a choice. He just said, nah, I don't wanna admit this. I don't want to testify to this under oath. I'd rather just, go to trial. But no, he decided, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and go with this. And so again, he's placed in a really difficult position. And I imagine, as he thinks about it, even just associating with this label, he's been able to put himself in a beautiful position financially. He's worth $4 million, but still acknowledging and recognizing that there's been a lot of dirt that's been going on, behind the scenes, even if he doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it directly. The DA's allegations are that his music and promotion of the label has been an indirect promotion of the gang. And that's just the unfortunate association there. There's been a lot of shots taken at Gunna, but I think in the end, for somebody who is an artist, who saw an opportunity to become successful, get rich, knowing that, hey, there's some shady stuff going on, it just really seems unfair to expect him to take the fall or do anything but accept this term of the agreement posed by the DA. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that he should have not testified to this? You think he should have abided by some sort of street code or G code? Again, him not being a gangster and not admit to these things. At the end of the day, whether he did or didn't, it's not like the DA and law enforcement don't already have more than enough evidence to ultimately prove that YSL is a gang, right? So I think, you make a business decision, so to speak, a life decision, and it's hard to see why he would do anything other than what he did. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you got something out of this, please show me some love, hit the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.